Ordinary meeting of council this morning. Apologies, we have one for Eric Roy. I think it's the only one. Moved by Neville, seconded by Ellison. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Item 3 is declarations of interest. I haven't been.
Chairman, there's an item in this agenda about really in here coming up in September. It's not a big thing, it's just reporting that it's on, so I'm just saying that I'll be on behalf of the wider Working Party, there's no submission to that, and I'll be appearing at the hearing. So, no big deal, but just letting you know.
Morrison. Peter, were you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item 10.4, appointment to the Midland Northern Pines Trust. I sit on that trust, so I won't be partaking in that item. Those decisions. And 10.2, item there, I'm an applicant to the Environmental Enhancement Fund, so I won't be partaking in those discussions either.
Thank you to councillors for declaring those interests. Item 4, public forums, petitions, deputations. Not aware of any this morning. So we'll move to item 5, which is the confirmation of minutes for the ordinary meeting of the 17th of July. Morris.
Oh yes, Mr. Chairman, I am recorded as present at this meeting, but also as an apology. I was able to attend by Zoom, but I wasn't able to participate in the meeting because I was in a bus travelling from Christchurch to Invercargill because of the fog, and so I probably not fair to say that I was at the meeting, even though I observed what was going on, but I wasn't able to participate.
Georgiana can make the appropriate change to that. Any further changes or omissions to those minutes? If not, would somebody like to move the small amendment that they are moved as Broome Creek record? Somebody who was there, moved by Lyndall, seconded by Peter. All say aye. Aye. I'd like to move to item 6, which is the adoption of committee resolutions. And there we have 3 in a row for the Southland Otago Regional Transport Committee. Jeremy, would you like to comment, or at least on the first one for a start?
Yep. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yep. No, they're all pretty straightforward. Obviously, it's all a lot of discussion around the midterm reviews and things. So I take it they're read, but I'm happy to move that they're correct. Well, we'll have to do every single one, don't we? So I'm happy to move the first one. Or can we do them all?
Happy to second that.
Moved by Jeremy, seconded by Phil. Any discussion? Not seeing any. I will put that recommendation. People say aye. Aye. And the second is the Southland Otago Regional Transport Committee meeting of the 20th of November 2023.
I'm happy to move that as well.
Moved by Jeremy, seconded by Phil. Any discussion? Put the recommendation. All in favour will say aye. Aye. And more, the meeting of the 2nd of February 2024.
I'm happy to move that.
Moved, seconded by Phil. All in favour will say aye.
Aye.
Right, we'll move to 6.5, which is the Southport Subcommittee meeting of the 3rd of July. In Eric's absence, I actually chaired that meeting. Have you seen the meeting, the minutes? Is there any questions or comments? If not, I'll ask somebody to seconded by Lyndall. Any comments? We'll put the recommendation. All in favour say aye. Aye. 6.6, the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting of the 31st. Linda, would you like to comment on your meeting?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Just wanted to have a wee draw your attention to 9.3, and I'm wondering if how councillors feel about changing the wording there. It was agreed, currently it says, it was agreed that council would show support for the recommendations by sending a letter to the Minister for the Environment. I would just like to make it a little bit more explicit about that we were supportive of the recommendations of the report to the minister, to the ministry. Correct me, Rachel, help me out, please. Just so that it's a little bit more clear that it's the particular recommendations about the modelling rather than the broader PCE conversation. Rachel, if you can help me out, that'd be great. Thanks.
Morena koutou. So the report we had at the last Strategy and Policy Committee meeting was the report by the PCE on the freshwater modelling, and there were 5 key recommendations, 4 of those for the Ministry for the Environment and 1 to the Minister himself. And you had indicated, Strategy and Policy Committee had indicated that they wished to send a letter to the Minister endorsing those recommendations, specifically around freshwater modelling and the establishment of national support in that space. So we have staff working on that, and we could just tweak that letter out, wording a little bit more specific.
I wouldn't be more comfortable with that, but that's up to councillors. I see that as unnecessary, but I'm interested in what you think.
No, I think that's a good point, and we did have quite a fulsome debate over the Commissioner's recommendations, and we were supportive of some of the recommendations he was making back to government on the availability of information. Mentioned the number of models, which I think 40 odd, some of them only used once, and the siloed approach. We certainly wanted to see that broken down so that information was more freely available.
So, Rachel, have you got a wording? My brain's
Yes, absolutely. So we've got the current wording. It was agreed that council would show support for the recommendations by sending a letter to the Minister for the Environment. Just continuing that on with, so by sending a letter to the Minister for the Environment, endorsing the specific recommendations around a national and coordinated approach.
Yes, that would be great. That's what's happy with that.
If you're moving the amendment, I'm happy to second it. Any discussion?
Don't actually need to amend it, because at the moment all you're doing is adopting the resolutions of the
Okay.
meeting. We can update the minutes and they'll be corrected for.
Yeah, great. That's,
Yeah.
thanks.
Change resolution.
Thanks, Rachel. Yes, so I'm moving those minutes. Thank you, Chair.
Moved by Lyndall, somebody else was the seconded by Morris. All in favour, say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to 6.7, which is the Regional Services Committee of the 6th of August. Would you like to comment on?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman, I would. There were 2 probably significant items with this meeting. One was the potential or hopeful restart of the rough fallout facility work. So that was very promising. It was well received by the committee, you could say, and 2 annual reports by sometimes one of the most unrecognised divisions, but one of the most important, in my view, in the council, is the biosecurity and biodiversity annual reports. So that was a feature of that meeting. Also, there is some minutes. I think, John, you want to read a minute there.
Yeah, just on page 68, question 3, it was actually Councillor McDonald that raised the question around the earhole and mulching, and I don't even know if it was a catchment group, was it? If it wasn't, sorry.
Yeah, it was a catchment group that asked me about the composting of dead animals. Yeah, it's catchment group chair that asked me about that.
It's just a wee correction, that first sentence.
Thank you. So I'd like to move minutes if possible.
Moved by Peter, seconded by John. Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to 6.8, page 23, which is the Regulatory Committee.
Chairman, I'll move the adoption of those minutes. And try and answer any questions that councillors may have.
Any questions for the chair on that meeting? I'm not seeing any. If there are none, would somebody like to second the recommendation? Seconded by Peter. Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All in favour will say aye. Aye. We'll move to item 7, which is the notification of extraordinary items for regular business. I'm not aware of any this morning. Item 8 is questions. Phil, I understand you have
And I have a late breaking question.
late breaking questions from Robert. Phil.
Just quickly re-accessing that. It was around if we had stats on the wetlands that may have been developed or restored in the next year. If we had that data by you.
So through you, Chair, I can advise that we've had a report coming to the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting on the 4th of September around wetland extent. And off the back of the councillor question, we've been doing some work to expand essentially what was already in that existing report, which you might recall had been touched on at a council workshop in recent times. And so there's a difference obviously between restored and constructed wetlands, and the original report that is coming through to Strategy and Policy is on natural wetlands, and the question essentially made us consider that, yes, we've got natural and restoration occurring, but then what is the extent of constructed wetlands across the region? And that's the piece we've done some work on, and we'll bring through the Strategy and Policy in a written report for you, so you have that information at your fingertips. I would note that we have got some other wetland information coming through to Strategy and Policy. So, for example, the council decision to grant Thriving Southland 235,000 to advance as seed funding to advance environmental improvements with the catchment groups, has quite a heavy focus around wetlands and constructed sediment traps, etc. And that grant has been discussed for Thriving now, and we're working to bring you through the criteria that would be applied and the purpose of the grant, etc., to come to Strategy and Policy for your approval on the 4th of September as well, which sits alongside, I guess, that discussion as well.
So what you're suggesting is that the answer to that question will be answered on the 4th.
We've got some written material that we'll bring through in short, and perhaps Karen, you might like to come through and answer the detail. We're not easily able to answer the question about the amount of restored wetland, but we've been doing some work around the constructed wetlands, constructed wetland work that has occurred in the region over the last few years. So.
Through Chair, we've been comparing different data sources and trying to get an answer to that question. I can say we won't be able to look at it over the annual period that was requested, because the information we've got available doesn't line up very well. So we've been looking to see what periods we can look over and provide information on. So hence we're looking across multiple data sources, hence why it's taking a little bit of time to try and pull the answer together. I will also just add that there are different definitions of wetlands as well. So what's in the National Policy Statement for Freshwater differs to what the Regional Forum report considers wetlands. So we're also trying to work through that to be very clear in the answer to you on that aspect as well. So hence it is taking a little bit of time, but we're pretty close to getting that answer, which will come through Strategy.
Just on that, it would be actually, I'm not sure how easy it is to get, but I'd like to know what progress we've made in the last 5 years. And that's not just wetlands, but that's biodiversity, because we know there's a lot of work going on out there. It would actually be nice to see some positive information. We know we've lost a lot of biodiversity. We know we've lost a lot of wetlands over the last 20, 30 years, but be good to see if we've turned the corner, and they may not be where they were in the past, but that would be also useful.
It would be good to balance the information that Councillor Morrison's requested on what's been improved with what's been lost over that period as well. If you wouldn't mind.
So we definitely have work on that for you.
Peter.
Just that definitional difference between the International Policy Statement and Regional Forum. I guess the third party that we make probably things Ngāi Tahu's definition of wetlands, given their explicit aspiration around restoring the lost wetland cover.
Peter, you got a question on that?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a really good question. Also, I'd sort of like to know, as a side to that, is, you know, this council as a regulator, what sort of seamless or more easier pathways through regulation can we provide to incentivise wetland creation? And that's probably a long-term question for us to ask ourselves. Yeah. But I like the line of questions, felt excellent work.
Thanks. Robert, you've got a...
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman, and apologies for not having notified you 2 days ago, but this regarding news from the government. So in light of the government's very recent statements about genetic engineering and their intention to allow genetically modified ryegrass into the environment, my question is, can this council refuse to allow the release of genetically modified organisms in Southland?
What I heard this morning was more about gene editing and the process. I think we've probably got to wait to see what happens. I don't, but Councillor Bruce might be coming to the table to answer that question.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, thanks, Councillor Guidance. A pertinent question. I saw the release yesterday and it's distributed amongst the team. Like, our regulatory role is explicit around the legislation that we administer and the relevant planning documents. The planning framework that we administer doesn't give us control over that issue at the moment. So I would say, from the perspective of our functions, my view, or I would stand to be correct, would be that we don't have the ability to release, to refuse something that may have been approved at a national level.
All right, that answers my question perfectly. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move to any other reports at this stage. I'll move to the Chairman's report. You'll see the meetings I've attended. I'm looking forward to the opening of Stead Street on Friday. I hope we have a reasonable turnout. This is, it is the third longest runway in New Zealand, and it is a strategic asset. And well, it's been a journey. We get to actually have a little bit of positive publicity about something that actually helps the region's resilience in times of natural disasters. Also looking forward to the trip to Hawke's Bay next week with the regional sector. We've already seen the 47 recommendations that have come out of the tragedy in Hawke's Bay. Most of them are actually applicable to any regional council, so it'll actually be quite good to talk to councillors that have been involved, and hopefully we can bring some learnings back. Obviously our staff are all over this stuff at the moment, so that will also be good. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there, but are there any other verbal reports this morning? Unless there's any questions on any of my questions. Seeing any? Oh, Peter.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just got a quick report. Late July, the Dipton Catchment Group hosted a visit from the Maniototo Catchment Group, and it's hard for me as a Southland to say, but there was some really high quality individuals in that Maniototo Catchment Group coming from Otago. They had a real focus around, I know it's a current topic around the country right now, an emerging topic around energy resilience. They've got large sunshine areas up there, plenty of land. They're looking at community energy resilience for rural communities. So that's really sparked their interest. So, yeah, so that was a really good one anyway. So just wanted to
There, no further reports, nothing in line. Okay, we'll move to item 10, and 10.1 is the Chief Executive's comprehensive report. Wim, would you like to comment on your report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kia ora koutou, councillors and public. I'm just wanting to identify some highlights in this report, and then I'm very happy for questions. We've got a full cohort of staff here to answer your specific matters. A few matters that the Chairman has already raised for the issues at a national level that we've been dealing with around the government's inquiry into climate adaptation, and also looking at the Hawke's Bay Independent Flood Review. These are all matters which have an impact on our region and which this council has been considering. Those are matters, as the Chairman says, we'll be discussing with the regional sector next week when we have a region-wide meeting in the Hawke's Bay. We also, the report just touches on the meeting with the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment, who came here in July, and to discuss his most recent report on changing land uses and what's fit for landscape in the future. He also discussed his modelling report with us. Those were, it was a very excellent meeting and really good to get the perspective that he brings as an independent advisor to Parliament. Just reflecting on the fact that yes, the Stead Street Pump Station will be opened this week, and it is a significant delivery on not only maintaining the safety for the major lifeline of the airport, but also to the people who live and farm in that particular catchment, and meets the environmental standards for maintaining fish passage, which is a very hard thing to say in this region. So that is on Friday. There's quite a lot of work going on in the organisation currently around the whole matter of resilience, and that is covered in this report also. The issues in relation to dam classification, and as owners of 4 small dams, we're actually also called up in the government regulation for that, so there's a bit of a report on that, and on the work that the staff have been doing at a nationwide level to be prepared around flood events, and the nature of our response to that. Our first team has been looking at the matters in the Hawke's Bay and has been part of a national flood warning symposium that was held this last month. So, councillors, rather than go through all of these piece by piece, I just very happy to take questions. Also just wanting to update in the environmental monitoring space the fact that we did actually have post this report going out and Exceedance in Gore for the first time in, I think, 4 years. So it's been a clear skies and quite a different sort of winter. So I'm happy to take questions from anyone that staff can answer.
I've got Robert, Neville, then Lyndall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. That's very good. With regard to PCE's visit, one of the things he said, although he did speak at length of his own issues, is that he wanted to hear ours. He was most interested to learn our views on a range of things. How will we ever know what he learned from us? What I mean is there any ongoing correspondence between the PCE and the council where we might say, well, how did you find us? What did you take from that meeting? Because I'd be very interested to know what he thought.
Yes, and I think we can do that in quite a, in quite a managed way, actually, to be honest. I mean, he and his team have taken a particular interest in the Matoda catchment in this region. And so, apart from following up with him on what he took from the meeting when he was here, because primarily, I mean, he really was presenting his information, is actually the fact that his team do meet with our staff and meet with people in this region. So we can happily report back on the ongoing conversations between his team and ours. I think there's been, conversation. I'm just looking at Rachel post the meeting. Have we had any other conversation with him on the Matoda matter that he was here discussing, or whether there's been any feedback around his modelling report from science?
So through you, Chair, we haven't met with the PCE staff since the meeting that we have down here, but we do have regular meetings with the PCE's team. And one of the options, actually, I'm aware that following the visit from the PCE, the Fighting Southland board are putting together some reflections and writing to the PCE. As you know, we ran an exercise in a workshop the following day about the things we'd taken away, and so there is an option actually to formally write to the PCE as well, and that was something that I had on my list of matters to discuss with the PCE staff, but also with yourselves, whether you would like us to take that step of taking reflections through and writing to the PCE's office.
Perhaps through strategy and policy. Thank you.
Neville.
Yes, Chairman, the Hawke's Bay flood review report made a significant number of recommendations, but when I read through those, many of those recommendations are to do things that we have already done or we already have in process. So my question really is, are there any of those recommendations that would require us to take more immediate action, things that we hadn't thought of?
So we're having a good look at the report. I think that it would be fair to say that all 47 recommendations are matters that every regional council should be addressing. I don't think that I think the event actually makes a difference to how prepared we are. I agree with you that there are things that we are doing that the report says should happen in all councils, but I suspect that all councils believe they are doing those things. I think the test is in the event. And so I think there's a broader conversation to be had about how, whether we are prepared for increasingly difficult events. And that's the nature of the conversation that we're having internally at the moment on that report. And also at a regional sector together. I think when we visit the Hawke's Bay, it'll be interesting to know from them how prepared they felt prior to that event relative to the recommendations as well. So I think it's timely for us to be focused. I think that's really critical. And I agree that I think we've got a good structure to deal with it, and in the past we have really well, but I'm very pleased we haven't been tested by Gabriel yet, and touch wood, that's not something that we're going to have to face here, but I think we're always going to be facing flood events.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman.
And I think, in those major events, there will be some learnings, communication, even the last Matara one, where the modelling was behind what local people were telling us, that communication factor to be able to be prepared, we spill water, etc. But the other thing that is concerning me is on the back of that, the emergency management is being looked at nationally, and my concern is we've got a good model here, can always improve on it, but the last thing we want is it being taken over from Wellington. We know that it's not the answer. We want support, but not a national coordinated centre out of Wellington, which would lose all the local knowledge and the ability to move quickly.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we've got Lucy online, and she's been in Wellington at the National Civil Defence Emergency Management Group 6 meeting. So perhaps you may have a comment actually from yesterday's meeting about where that thinking is at.
Lucy, would you like to comment?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Okay. Not too bad. Speak a little bit louder.
So I was just, I'm up in Wellington at the moment, and the primary reason was to come up yesterday for the Civil Defence Special Interest Group meeting. So we had a half-a-day workshop with staff from the Department for the Prime Minister and Cabinet. The DPMC team are leading the government's response to the inquiry that you've referred to. And so the SIG is made up of group managers, and it was our opportunity to influence the thinking that's happening there. It was a very good conversation, free and frank, and went later than we were expecting. They were off to brief NEMA's ELT, the National Emergency Management Agency's ELT, on their proposals and where their current thinking is at. Fair to say that it's evolving and will continue to evolve probably until they release next week, is what they're hoping, some form of release. I'll be able to brief you in a bit more detail when we're back, and we can do that through either a workshop or regional services.
Thanks for that, Lucy. Lyndall.
Thanks, Chairman. 3 things, I think. Firstly, on page 85, and following on from Lucy, I suppose, the flood impact and risk specialist team. Just wondering, and this might be the wrong place, so correct me, what TA involvement is in that training? Is that where the TAs contribute, or, and if so, do we have people at all that TAs coming to that work?
Through you, Chair, yes, the TAs are involved in the training that the first team have been working through. It's still kind of at its early stages, it's fair to say, so we need to come back through council and give you guys a more detailed brief on their work programme, but the initial conversations have been both with Emergency Management Southland and staff who are on the list who need to be aware of first, and as it's starting to kind of gear up and find its rhythm. So yes, they are involved, but it is still just those staff who would be involved in emergency coordination centre, controllers, etc. have had a briefing as well.
I guess my question really is, have we got enough of those from the other interested parties?
I think through you, Chair, if you indulge me, I think through the KEG, so Councillor Cook may want to comment as well, but through the KEG and the group committee, there's been a request that's just in the last few months gone formally to the CEs from the territorial authorities for more staff to be allocated, both in the controller roles and also to ensure that they are releasing staff for training. So we've got a good cohort of people being trained in the broader emergency management training profiles, but the first stuff is still kind of finding its place in all of that. So it's a bit of an evolving picture at the moment.
Okay, thanks. A couple of other things, Chairman. Just an apology of sorts because Councillor Gibson and I are off doing the Judging the Community Awards, so we can't attend the Steed Street Punt Station opening, much to my dismay, because I was looking forward to being present at that. And the other question I've got is about the Waihopai integrated catchment management work. I think my question is, when might the constituent representatives from that area be involved in some discussions of that area?
I'm just looking to see if
Fiona's looking.
Oh, yeah, Fiona is here. I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
For
Given that if it was Gore, Jeremy would probably be there.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Councillor Ludlow. So what we have done with that project is done some initial, had some initial discussions with focus groups to try and sort of get the project sort of underway. But I think from here, what would be beneficial is a briefing and an update to council on the scope of the project, the intention and the direction of travel. So I'm happy to come back through you, Chairman, to councillors on that and perhaps a workshop format.
the last question.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, not really, but yes.
Right, we'll move to Morris. Morris, then Peter.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, going back to Neville's question. I had another question, but Neville's question about about recommendations for catchment management. And yes, we are doing a number of things, and other councils will be doing a number of things, but the one of the most difficult things to do is to persuade people and have the resources to move people from places that are at risk, because there is no amount of stock banking or even catchment works that we can do that will protect people who are at risk where they live when you have a really big flood. So that's a major challenge, and it's a challenge to us, and to other councils, and to people all over the world. There's a program on the TV on Tuesday night about it's called Antarctica, and Paddy Gower was fronting it. I don't know if anybody saw that, but I recommend that you, if you didn't, you track it down on TV3 Plus, whatever their internet provider platform is. He sort of presents as a person who didn't really know too much about climate change, and he was possibly a bit of a skeptic, but he went to the Antarctic and he got information. He was talking to people who live in the most exposed situation and they say, oh, no, we don't actually believe it's going to happen, it'll be all right. And, you know, this is such a view of so many people who I talk to who don't really see it as a major problem, and that's going to be our biggest challenge, I think. So how we do that, I don't know, but it's certainly something that we've got to try and address. My main question that I was going to ask, Mr. Chairman, was that the report, the whole report, is very good. I don't want to over-egg it, but it has got a huge amount of information in there. This agenda is on our website. It's publicly available for anybody who's interested to have a look. There are links to various tools that we have developed that is really useful for people who are concerned about where they live in terms of flooding or a whole lot of stuff. Is on page 90 I'm referring to now. The 3D map tool as a result of the LiDAR, Southland contours and elevation. If we haven't all had a look at that and had a play with it by now, then that's a failure on our part, because that is those things are really useful for a whole lot of things, and we should be promoting that to the people that we talk to. If they say, oh, referring back to your comments earlier, Alistair, about people not getting information, there's a huge amount of information here. If only people would make the effort to find out about it. The last point there on page 90 about the South National Context Tool, that's a really good piece of information designed for environment plans and helps people understand what their catchment is like and the things that they need to do in their operation on their farm to mitigate their adverse effects and get a farm management plan that is really effective. So, in summary, this is a lot of really good information there, so thank you for doing that. I know you do it at this time, but I want to compliment you on that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Morris, and I did watch that program, and the 5 metres, the bigger one, 30 metres, would be a lot of people with wet feet. So. Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I've got a question, but I'll just give a wee bit of context to it. I'll say on page 84, when we've got policy and government reform, and one in the first paragraph, the last sentence, the pace and the scale of legislative reform underway is expected to continue. We were promised before the election that this government was very keen to get out of regional matters and leave it to the regions to decide. That was a platform that they campaigned on. My question to you, are you seeing any of that reduction? This last sentence indicates that you're not. And my question is really to do with one of resourcing of your staff in this council and the consumption of time. So just a general comment around that, if you could, please. Where are we tracking? More work, just the same, or a lot less workload?
Well, I guess that we're looking to see what the detail of government's change of policy will be. There is already the first tranche of changes to the Resource Management Act for the Select Committee, so there's quite a bit of information that is there already for us in terms of what might change. But we know that government is going to address the RMA in 3 phases, so there's obviously going to be 3 tranches of work ahead of us there. There are changes across all of the areas that government indicated early, in becoming this government, that it was going to change policy in relation to. So wherever there's change, there's always going to have to be adaptation at our level to respond to it. So there are changes across a number of policy planks. This council has already spoken before 3 select committees on matters relating to policy change, and we've also spoken on behalf of the entire sector on other government inquiries into change. So wherever there's change, councillor, there's always going to have to be a response from us. So it's some of that is known, some of it is unknown as to what the detail will be at this point, but we know that there's a calendar of work coming at us.
Thank you.
Any further questions on wellness report? Jeremy, I haven't missed you, have I? Right, okay.
Move we receive the report.
Moved by Neville, seconder Morris. All in favour say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to 6.2, the Environmental Enhancement Fund, establishing new fund categories, page 91. Would you like to comment on the report?
Morning, Council. So through you, Chair, we're just here to talk about some suggested changes to the Environmental Enhancement Fund. But I will hand over to Polly, who I think everybody has met. Polly is the team leader who is responsible for delivering the biodiversity around projects, so she can answer your questions and talk a little bit.
Through you, Chair, I take the report as read and take it to answer any questions really, unless someone wants more context.
I've got Alistair then Morris.
Holly, can I just, through you, Chair, a point of clarification. You've approved 802,000 in the, and then there's another 180,000 put aside in the new thing. So basically that chews up the 980.
Yes.
Correct? Thank you. And then the new classifications, they haven't been bid for yet.
Yes.
Got Morris, then Robert.
Thank you. Refer to that, Mr. Chairman, on page 92. Talked about these projects and says the projects do to demonstrate positive impact on Indigenous biodiversity, and this may be under such as involving whānau and Maori practices. Can you explain what that is? I mean, I understand Mātauranga, but what how can that be incorporated? How could that be criteria?
Through you, Mr. Chair. This is a category that we've been working on for some time with Tammy through discussions. This has come about because of the strictness of our existing criteria. So at this stage, we don't have any really set criteria for it. And but what we have identified is that some of the areas and projects that are of interest to Rūmanga would meet our existing criteria to be able to support them because of the strictness of it. So we're working with them and they will develop more criteria and we can bring that back to you.
Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just further to that, it's a bit like the health system, isn't it, where Mātauranga Māori or Māori health ideas that aren't visible necessarily to the Western eye only become visible when you engage and discuss those things. That's what I took from that. But my question is about the hedgerows of what potentially wilding trees which are spreading wild. Where are these and what biodiverse areas are they threatening? How big are they? I'm struggling to quite understand what they are.
Yeah. So the applications that we received through our regular fund were all from Palmer Farms, and the team have been out to Centre Hill Farm. Thank you, Mike. And so we're working with them and with DOC to prioritise those hedgerows. They're quite long areas of rows and they're all Douglas fir. So we currently know that they are already wilding into high value conservation areas that are near them. And the reason that we've posed this category is because this is our last year of biodiversity action on the ground funding and last year of NFE funding. And this is a one-off action that will be done and dusted. So as soon as we remove these, the problem is gone forever from them being a source. So it was an ability for us to do something relatively effective without having to have a long-term investment in it, whereas where we do supporting other landowners with weed control, that requires them to keep that going. So this was just a really effective way to get some really good gains.
So they're not currently growing, they're not growing on high conservation value. We know of about 90 sites around the region where we have got issues with wilding. A lot of them are in the shelter belt. So the shelter belt might be on farmland and it might be intensively managed land, but we're getting seeds that are then going up into high value biodiversity areas from those. So it's a way of protecting all the values on mid-dome and up in high country and other areas by doing work outside of the conservation stakeholders.
Thank you. Further, if I could just say, thinking about value for money, given that they're Douglas fir, they must be big enough. If they're felled, who gets the log? And is that factored into the amount of money that we're giving for this work to go ahead? Because they'll get a return presumably.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The work that we've been doing with Palmer in particular, they're building that into it. So they are selling those logs, and that is coming off the total project cost. So that is basically funding the work to some end as well. How they're paying for it. So it's coming back to that same work.
It seems curious that wouldn't be enough the return from the log wouldn't be enough to get the job done. It seems odd.
It isn't.
It isn't.
What about myself, Phil and Lyndall? We've been fortunate to receive this shovel-ready money in the last few years. Are we reasonably confident we can maintain the gains we've made?
So there's going to be a lot of work that we need to do on what's next for biodiversity post this Jobs for Nature project. So we'll be hoping to work with councillors over the next 6 months to a year to come up with what next for biodiversity programs. A lot of the projects that we've chosen to invest in have very much been ones where the landowner has given long-term commitment, and so there is long-term investment. There've been QE2s in place, that type of thing. So we are trying to make sure those gains will be maintained as much as possible. But we do need to look at the future.
Phil, Lyndall and John.
Very quick, hopefully simple question. Where the shelter belts are removed, is there an intent to replant with some more friendly species, or is that's beyond what we're considering here? I just asked that question knowing that there's the interest in separation and not removing trees from landscapes and not replacing them with something.
So through you, Mr. Chair, it's my understanding they will be replaced with something that might be wild.
At the expense of farming or as part?
With Lyndall and John.
Thanks, Chairman. So the 80,000 maintaining the gains fund is a 1 year one-off fund.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless you'd like to give us more money.
I'd love to, I would.
So I think it's probably part of the context is as of the 1st of July next year, when we hit that Jobs for Nature funding cliff, we will need to look at does this fund continue? What scale does it continue? And which of the criteria do we fund? So we've included the existing criteria in the paper as well. The intent would be to get almost back to square one. Is this a good thing to be doing? How much should we be doing? And what should we be investing in? So we will, in the next few months, have really good conversations with you guys about what.
If I can, I'm a wee bit uncomfortable that the perception might be that we've made an exception for this particular case. Do you understand? So that's my only concern. I would love the work to be done, and if that's, I understand the reasons for, but I'm a wee bit concerned about the perception that we might have made it more possible for one group than another.
I guess the Palmo case was the thing that made us look at it and think should we and how can we get this in, but there are other cases and other landowners that could benefit from this criteria as well. So it wouldn't be 80,000 just going to Palmo for this. It would allow us to work with other community groups. We know where the Kingston Flower is, there's potential to move some trees and all other things. So it's kind of it's not just one.
Great, no, that's fine. That actually cuts to the chase, that's fine. Thank you.
John.
Hi, thanks, Chairman. Phil asked a question exactly what I was going to ask. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I'll move the recommendations, Chairman, and in my view, it's a good way of spending that money and investing that money in anything.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. I will put the recommendation. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to 10.3, which is local government reviewing agreements 2024.
Councillors, good morning. This item is in relation to the voting that representatives attending the LGNZ conference will be asked to do on behalf of council. And as per last year, we have a list of the remits up for voting, and we are suggesting a range of positions that you may wish to take, which is in the appended table. As we discussed earlier today, there's an erratum in the table, so we are tabling an updated copy of the tabling the table. The attachment that was there and that erratum relates to item 7, which was duplicated. We'll take the report as read, but we will cover item 7 when we get to it in just slightly more detail, because we're going to have an opportunity to have a look at that. And I will take the report as read. So the recommendations here are that you note the report and that you agree to a position for each remit. So I propose that we go through each of those remits and turn to determine whether you're happy to support each of those or not. If so, the recommendation is to accept those. If the recommendation is to change your position, you will see on page 98 that we have an alternate recommendation there, which we will read out and capture. You happy for us? Sorry, just to move through that, Chair.
That would be good. Just looking at page 97. At the moment, we've got Councillor Linda Lovedo and as alternates, and they're not going to be there now. So I think we need to promote Alistair Gibson, who will be at the conference. It's just a small change.
No, he's going to go snotty and say, basically, if you can, if I was an observer at the beginning.
Oh, from the Wednesday. Jeremy might still be there. Are you going to be there on the Wednesday, Jeremy?
No. Yes.
Yes. Okay. No.
It's good.
No. Disregard that comment.
Right.
We're covered.
Right, but do we need to update that, Councillor Ludlow?
Yeah, that was just my point I was going to make, Chairman. I'm no longer attending the conference.
All good. The first one looks fairly straightforward.
So if we just go through each one in turn, you'll see that the proposal for the first remit is to support it. Is there any view to the contrary? No. Okay. Number 2, proposal to support. Any view to the contrary?
It's a great idea.
Proposal 3, support. Yes. Okay. Proposal 4 to support. Proposal 5 to support.
Yes, with
Proposal 6 to support. Any contrary views? No. Okay, that brings us to proposal 7, and this is the one that was not outlined in the table that you got in your minutes, with apologies. So the proposal really relates to a remit petitioning government for support for local government to implement central government initiatives, and it's really about more equitable and appropriate funding models. If you've read the actual full remit, you will see this has 2 parts. Infrastructure was mentioned, but actually there's a more generic request for support for funding from central government initiatives, and certainly off the back of the last government, there are a number of policy statements, standards that were required to be implemented that came with no government funding, new governments requiring changes to those, also not coming with funding. And you may recall the work that the previous government did into local government reform, signposted that there was a need for closer relationships between government and local government in relation to funding for all its work. So not that that's been particularly driven forwards by this government, but there's, I think, certainly been a narrative that that would be required looking at the future and going forward. So the recommendation here is to support that.
And I think, yeah, I strongly support that. We've been given things we have to do with no money coming with them, and I think which will make a lot of difference. But actually, if we're being asked to do more with a rating base that is struggling, I think it's a very good debate to be having and putting it to the government. Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly agree with what you say. Could I just go back, sorry, to number 3, which was the Māori words. And firstly to say well done, I think that's a very good statement. But the third paragraph where you say, maybe I'm reading this wrong, Māori have a distinctive role as a partner in Tiriti or Waitangi, and we do not believe that subjecting Māori wards and constituencies uphold subjecting them to what? Is there something missing from that, or is it just the way I'm
I
reading?
wonder if that is Rachel, comment on that, Rachel.
At least one.
Or is it? I don't know. Is it the word subjecting? It means something more than I think it does.
Sounds a whole lot worse than it should, I suspect. Doesn't it?
It seems there should be an addition after the word constituencies to referendum might go fit in there. Is that what you meant?
I think the remit, what it's about is saying that it should be the same criteria for any other changes towards that they don't necessarily.
I think the wording could be refined now that I will read that. Dave isn't here today, but just thinking off the top of my head.
The intent is correct. I think the rationale is not going forward anywhere. So the question of the intent of the rationale is actually about ensuring that what's in the remit statement is actually acceptable. So I agree. I feels like there's something slightly incorrect there, but the intent of, I think, the rationale is there, which is that this is a local government responsibility in relation to Te Reti as opposed to a national referendum. So and it's supporting that it should be local government decision making rather than that. So because this is not going forward in this way, this is just for your information.
Linda, were you indicating?
No.
Peter.
Yeah, takes me a while to get my thinking caught up, Mr. Chairman, but I just want to pick up on point number 3 too, and totally agree with that position of the councils that we maintain their ability to make our own decisions. And what really troubles me about a referendum, and I've said it before, and Councillor Ludlow said this too when she chaired the strategy and policy meeting, I think I can recall that, is asking a majority to make a decision about the rights of a minority. For me, it's quite troubling when you put people in that position. So I think we've landed in the right space for that. So we could have easily gone over point 3 and 4 and not talked about it. That's the easy thing to do, isn't it? I had quite a spirited discussion yesterday with a member of the public about this issue. It's quite current, as we all know. So just thought I would raise that.
Chair, I'm just wondering if we've missed out a couple of words there, and it's to pick up on Councillor Garton's point about subject to, and that particular word, I think it's subject to a referendum, and I wonder if that just reads more comfortably if those words, so it would then read, Māori have a distinct role as a partner of Te Reti o Waitangi, and we do not believe that subjecting Māori wards and constituencies to a referendum upholds local government responsibilities in relation to Te Reti.
Correct.
Does that work for everybody? Thank you, answer the question. Thank you.
I think when this came up, and I did sign it was really around localism, making local decisions. I actually believe the relationship we have with local iwi is actually better because you're not having one person that is the iwi representative. We're able to have a much wider representation, which I think is the journey that New Zealand should be on. Eventually, we might get to the stage where you don't need Māori wards, but until that happens, there needs to be that opportunity.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so we're at point 7, which you had the amended wording there for that, and we're proposing that you support that. That was about central government funding as a whole. And then the final remit is about the goods and services tax revenue sharing with local government, the opportunity. It's a funding conversation as well, and we support the central government funding. So the question is, are you happy to support that remit as we have suggested?
This was a recommendation that came through that local government committee report, and we've always argued it's a tax on a tax, and there's talk of new development money going back, but I think it's a good point. We need to keep making that we're underfunded, and actually the GST returning to the councils of origin makes a lot of sense. Lyndall.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I just wanted to check that I'm understanding this correctly. The LGNZ are adopting a different process for the remits this year, is that right? On page 101, which is 2 of 49 of the LGNZ paper, they talk about prioritising the remits at a maximalist and a minimalist approach. And am I understanding that correctly, that that's a different way to the way they've done it in the past? Normally, I don't recall them prioritising them quite like that, but maybe they just haven't articulated it that way. Is it a different process?
I'm not aware. I'll have to go and ask the question. Actually, that's not highlighted. It's a different piece.
Because I know in the past when Chairman and I have been delegates, we've there's just been a vote and it's passed or failed, and then it goes on to some other place in the universe. Yeah, possibly. And I don't recall them kind of coming out with a prioritised list, but maybe in the past they've just kept that to themselves and haven't shared it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking at that, and I'm not sure that would be our list of priorities, but I'm sure they're going to get through the whole 8 of them. So probably
but I just
matter.
It appears to be it's a national council decision and it's during meeting.
Yeah, which I think
must be AGM to
I'm just not sure whether it's been the way it is.
No.
I'm not suggesting that the past is the way it should be done, but I think we need to be conscious that there might be a new process for how that prioritisation actually happens.
Yes, so if we're going to be doing that, we need to know what this council's prioritisation of those 8 actually are.
And I'm assuming on page 02, what their recommendation is that 1 to 8, which services. But the services is right at the bottom, which is one that would have the most.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that list is in any priority, but I think my understanding, Chairman, is that once the delegates have voted, I'm wondering if the prioritisation is by weight of numbers.
Well, the percentage which will come up on the screen of support for each. That may be what they're getting at.
What it's saying is vote on the remits. So asking what we've just done here, but then we can vote again on ranking the successful remits by priority. That's what it says.
Because if that's the case, we need to indicate what we think is our most.
Yes, I think we
most
do.
priorities.
I think we need to do that.
If that is the way it works.
Well, that's how it's laid out here.
Yeah.
We've got Peter and Paul.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just quickly, I'll just turn your attention to number 5, graduated driver licensing system. Actually quite pleasing to see that. Absolutely right. In remote, not even remote, but in rural areas, employment for the young is totally related to if you've got the driver's license. So I'm really pleased to see that. I think that's a really good initiative.
In the city, actually.
Can I make a suggestion, Chair, in relation to advancing this, that if we have the agreement to the matters as they're laid out in the recommendation, that we conduct a doodle poll of some kind to councillors after this meeting to use that as means to gain the prioritisation ranking of the 8. Because I think we could be here for a while having that conversation. Sorry. So I think that the best way to do that would be to do that. In fact, how we're going to do it was at the AGM electronically to get the ranking from each councillor, and then that will give us the rank. Would that be a suitable way forward?
I think that's good. And the other thing is we probably need to give the delegates some flexibility. Sometimes the remit, when you hear it, or it's amended and it's not the same as, but I think that's a good way forward. Paul?
Just going back to item 6 here, with regards to deteriorating buildings, we're supporting the process of councils and TAs stepping in more. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm not sold on that. The simple fact of the matter is, a lot of it's in relation to economics, forcing people to improve buildings economically they can't is a difficult thing. I'm not sure if I support it due to the fact that when TAs are getting involved in managing deteriorating buildings, the community will start asking TAs to manage their deteriorating services and facilities within towns as well. So they're sort of overstepping a wee bit of a boundary, I sort of think. So I see it doesn't work in other countries. There's been a couple of notes in the information that you've supplied where other countries do certain processes, but I would suggest that that does not work. The buildings are still deteriorating, and all it does is it seems to fulfill a legit framework where people are charged in sense.
I think the point, and it speaks to, I guess, the information on page 125, is that there's currently no tool for local government currently to intervene unless the building becomes dangerous, which means that you have to wait till it gets to that point before something happens. And I guess there's risk associated with
This does relate
to the public.
Unoccupied. It's not occupied.
Perhaps Bruce could comment.
Possibly add to Amy's comments. Previous role spent quite a lot of time on these sorts of issues. And as you see from the Gisborne remit, they've put a lot of effort into their remit, and that's been supported by a number of other TAs, Dunedin, Whanganui, etc. The remit sort of seeks to provide some more legislative tools to address these situations, as it says in the commentary table there. This is maybe something that you could argue is outside of your statutory responsibilities. It does sort of link through to regional leadership maybe. So there's arguments both ways as to whether you need to get involved in this. I didn't, unfortunately, had a pretty short time to respond to this. I didn't have a chance to liaise with OCC and SDC and GDC in particular about what their position is. There is certainly some current topical issues in Invercargill around these types of situations, and Gisborne has highlighted it's not, they've talked about a regional issue. I think it's maybe more than a regional issue, but they're suggesting that there needs to be some more tools in the toolbox to address these situations.
No, thanks for that, Bruce. It's, the number of those buildings around, and it's historic, so you can't do anything with it, and it is a problem in some areas that need probably some more flexibility. So we'll listen with interest. Linda, you were indicating?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I just wanted to say that although it may not be strictly within our purview, I represent the Invercargill constituency, and that's a city. There are real issues with housing stock, quality and quantity, and so if this initiative would give our colleagues kind of greater ability to encourage better use of the empty buildings, then I think it is within our realm actually, because they are still part of our community, and we should.
Jeremy.
You're muted, Jeremy. Do you
You're
wanna-
muted.
Or you're not wanting to speak?
No, I think he's.
Right, okay.
It's just a voice.
Okay,
So we have a decision on this particular
yeah.
remit item.
So just coming back to that, when we went through originally, we were to support, but councillor,
Yeah, I've just raised it that I'm very dubious of this stepping in. I'm more of the to stay neutral on the matter on the basis that it's outside of our responsibility. That's me.
Yep.
Being the old one out once again.
so I guess the question is whether you still wish to have a view,
Hmm.
or whether you wish to remain neutral. So can we just revisit that?
I would support it.
Do we have the ability to abstain? Whether we do, but
It's
I would suggest we leave it to the delegates to listen to the debate. If there's
Let's get a council vote decision.
No, we don't know. I'm not sure if everybody agrees with this. Chairman.
No, I don't.
I think mostly we agree that we should vote in favour.
Yeah, so shall we just be clear, do we have a
Show of
council?
hands, maybe?
show of hands, support the remit. Okay. Clear direction.
Thank you. So then just, is there any more conversation, revisiting of the conversation about any of the matters on here, or can we just come back to the fact that you might be required to prioritise the order of agreed remits? And
I think we should decide we are going to do that and
Yep.
make it part of the recommendations
Yep.
as point 4.
Yep. So we will run a doodle poll after this and go with majority rule. Just to be explicit. Well, most votes wins, and then we'll recirculate that to councillors. And then the final recommendation was that you empower your delegates to vote as so directed by council through the recommendations.
So who are the delegates going to the AGM? There was Lyndall, Nicole, Jeremy and Alistair. You're not going now?
No, it's just Nicola and Jeremy.
And
We
Alistair?
have voted, no. Oh, sorry.
Well, it sounds like Jeremy's still there, so we're all right here. I thought at the start, I knew Jeremy wasn't staying for the whole conference.
Confirmation of that.
We just get
but-
one vote. don't
Yeah, we
We
only
only
get
get
one.
one vote,
So we're all
so,
right.
so the three of us probably with,
So Mr Chair, can I just suggest, given that you did have 2 alternates, that given that you do have another councillor there, it might be wise just to ensure that we empower Alistair to also be an alternate.
Just in case.
I'm happy to move
Just in
in that
case for some
direction.
reason you're all trapped somewhere.
He was forgetting me.
We'll have to say, we'll take no notice, Alistair, but it's all right.
I'm just an observer.
Okay, so we are ready to vote on the recommendation slightly amended, I think, has Jan got the,
I've just added item 4, conduct a doodle poll outside of the meeting process today to assist council's delegates in providing a priority for the successful remits. And councillor Converse will replace councillor Lovell as a delegate.
moved by Morris, seconded for that, as amended. Alistair, any further discussion? I will put the recommendation, all in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we will move to 10.4, appointment of mid-dome wild trees, charitable trustees, page 151.
Just a process thing, Chairman, when I read, look to ensure compliance with the trustees, we're asked to consider the approve the confirmation, something on that on the board. I'll move the recommendation, and this is, I mean, it says it shouldn't be there.
Is that just an extra trustee, or is there some going off?
Through you,
Tommy.
Chair, Glenys Dixon has stepped down. So Glenys Dixon is a replacement.
It's been moved by Nicola, seconded by Paul. Any further discussion? We'll put the recommendation, all in favour say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to 10.5, contact Southern Wind Farm. You'd like to comment on the, I'll ask Bruce to comment first, then I'll take Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Take the report as read. Thank you for the 2 workshops we were able to have prior to the preparation of these comments and them through to the EPA. Unfortunately, the compressed timeframe under the fast track process didn't enable those to be placed in front of council formally prior to sending them to the EPA. So it's really a process issue to tidy up on that and formally seek your approval of those comments. just very quickly, the comments closed. There were over 20 parties who did comment, and we've been circulated the links to those. If you haven't had a look at it, there's an interesting range of views. A small further update, the application has been placed on hold by the EPA panel at the applicant's request as of 30th of July, while the applicant works through some of the issues raised in the comments. As of 2 days ago, on the 12th of August, the panel had commissioned an independent ecological review, and that ecological review has raised some data-related issues that the panel has put back to the applicant for some further feedback. So that's where that's sitting at the moment. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks for that, Bruce. Morris.
Yes, this is a very detailed and full submission or letter. Very good. Just one point on page 7, near the bottom, second line, draft and bullet points there. I think it might be, needs to, a wee bit of a change just to clarify what it means. You've got the area proposed is slightly larger than that of the total area of Eastern Plateau wetland, which is identified for lot. Then, however, he's proposed that the offset is not equivalent. I'm not sure who he is.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd suggest that's probably a typo and it should be we propose.
We propose.
Unfortunately, that has gone. So,
Yeah, I know that.
Yes,
Maybe it's
apologies for that.
another letter to clarify that. So,
I move the recommendations, Chairman, with head workshops on what should be, and you head forward with it. Like to try and amend it now.
Moved and seconded. Any further comment? It's good to see that actually that it has been a hold and there are some considerations being given. Robert, you were also.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're not in any detail, but if you've been involved in similar. This is a fast one. Is it extraordinarily fast by your reckoning, or is this been subject to this kind of pressure before? You say there wasn't time to do this in there.
Mr. Chairman, the fast track process specifies the timeframes legislatively, and so this process is following the same timeframes that others have. There's a lot of commentary, and I don't want to say too much because it's in the process at the moment, but obviously the fast track is currently paused while the applicant works through the large number of issues that have been raised by other parties. So the fast track process has been over 100 of them around the country today, and they range all sorts of things. And some of them have moved relatively quickly through the steps in the fast track processes. Others have had holds at various points in time, both generated by the panel and sometimes by the applicant. And by way of comparison, there were, I think from memory, 12 minutes issued by the panel for the Hananui Agriculture Fast Track. So there may well be further pauses from the panel as they work through the issues in the decision-making process. It's interesting. It's moving reasonably fast today, but we're still reasonably early in the fast track process at this point. Thank you.
If there are no further questions or comments, I've been moved and seconded. I'll put the recommendation. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to 10.6, which is the long-term accommodation project update.
I'm on my own. So just, this is an update, council. As we said, we would bring the report of the working group meetings to this table. The working group met for the first time and brought together a program, a program of work and a deadline for getting the processes of both the workforce strategy that will drive decisions about the business case forward, and it adopted the timeframe which is attached on page 168. So this is just a report from that meeting and is for your information, and meets an agreement that we would report here after every meeting.
Neville.
Well, particularly, Chairman, I just ask about after the comments of the City Council, Mayor, in relation to councils working together on accommodation requirements into the future. Why isn't that one of the action points
So,
we're seeing on page 166?
okay, so the working groups was brought together not to make any decisions or any recommendations about anything other than the business case about which option is best to go with. So this is looking at what are the accommodation needs of the organisation, and what are the options that this council should consider. The council in general, however, is welcome to have that discussion now if it wants to, but we're not in a position yet to be able to even say what is a good idea at this point until we look at both our workforce strategy, which is yet to be finalised, that says what are we going to be needing into the future, and secondly, what the options are from a financial perspective, of which shared services is absolutely a live matter, and that won't be happening until that process is through. So that's what we're bringing back to you in December. So there's no decision to be made until we actually know what the financial options are. So that is what the delivery is going to be. That will take us till the end of the year to get there.
Yes, I think not talking the same language here, that my own take is that we should be working with other councils on the accommodation issue, which I think it's an important matter that should be part of this, not just us operating in isolation.
So sorry, yeah, I can understand what you're saying.
Councils sharing accommodation.
Yeah. So one of the options is there's three options in here in the business case. One of them is a shared services option. So we are working within the Invercargill City Council on what that option might look like. Absolutely, we are. We have been since last year. So we meet with them and we have been in discussions with them, and we've been to see sites, and we are looking at what their accommodation needs are as well as ours. And that has now been extended to conversations with Southland District Council. So that is an active part of the business case for shared service, which is one of the three options.
Thank you. Peter.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. Just going on from that wee discussion here. So are we thinking about it too in the terms of a shared ratepayer too, in what they may have to endure into the future and making decisions now? That would be my wish if that was the case. One thing I'd like to say, sorry, just thanks very much for this report. Whether or not it should be a standing item, it's quite an important decision for us to make. I have some concerns that one concern is that we could miss a moment here if we're waiting for December, if we have other parties that are saying, come on. But then converse to that, I'm really concerned that this might get away on us by public statements, by mayors in the media pushing us along too fast until we've done all our due diligence on this matter. So I would really caution the working group to maintain their discipline and make sure they do all their work, all their due diligence.
So the chair of the group is Jeremy, and he will be maintaining good discipline in that committee. The purpose is to stay focused on what is actually the best value for money. And of course, the business case would be what is the best value for money, which would benefit the ratepayer. That's the point.
Okay. That's crucial. Thank you.
Paul, myself, then Lyndall.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I've been away for a month, and this is good information. So I need a wee bit of clarification on the makeup of this. It says working group. Are we our representatives on this working group, or is it just the two councillors that are the working group?
With staff.
With staff, and is that, as Neville said, incorporating other councils?
No, this is our working group. So just for clarification, Councillor, the purpose of this was not to, because there is so much conversation publicly and because this has got wide public interest, I recommended that the staff who have been working on this accommodation matter with our colleagues and also internally should incorporate council colleagues in this, because it's a major decision. And so I want to ensure that when we bring a business case back to council at the end of the year, that has included council representation and reporting back to this body on the way through. Part of the work that our staff are doing is with the other councils in relation to cost, potential locations and shared service matters that will be fed into the business case. So it's a working group for this council. There's not yet, until we get a business case, any kind of cross-council working group, because all the councils are looking at the options in exactly the same way at the moment.
So there's no cross-council working group as of yet.
Not yet, no.
So we're doing a lot of work until such time as.
So we're looking.
We may just double up on the work if we're not. We're going to do this now and then.
No, so just to be clear, staff are working on this and bringing back to the working group the business case. There are 3 options in the business case, and one of them, the most likely one at this point, is the one that actually includes sharing a location. But we need to look at all the options. One includes staying here on the site and rebuilding this, and the other looks at going on our own somewhere else, either in a variety of places in the region or in one location. So we're going to look at all 3 of those, because it would be, unwise to assume that any one of those matters is the most cost effective for the ratepayer. So we're looking at all 3. On the shared services one, we are of course working with the other councils. So that is absolutely what is happening.
So just following on from that, we need to do, and all the councils have to do due diligence so they make a good decision. Nothing's off the table, and we need to work through that. Invercargill is well aware we aren't in a position before Christmas. We want an indication by August, and he knows that that he knows the time frame. So
as I said, I was away at the time. It's something I would really enjoy being on, but obviously I was away at the time. So thank you. It was answered by one.
Thanks, Chairman. Just 2 quick things. We need to determine our own needs before we know what we can share, as do the others, right? And just a reminder that as our expectations of Chairman Horrell is that when he speaks on our behalf. Just caution you that maybe that doesn't always happen with their colleagues.
Right, are we in a position to move that report, which is
I'll second it, Chairman.
Just checking, well, I think Jeremy's had to go rather than.
Yes, he's gone.
Moved and seconded, no, any further conversation? I'll put the recommendation, all in favour will say aye.
Right.
And we'll move to 10.7 on page 169, which is the councillors' meeting schedule.
I have a number of updates to make to the meeting schedule. So we have a Regional Services Committee meeting with Catchment Liaison Committee Chairs has been set down for Monday the 26th of August at 1 o'clock. We have confirmation that the extraordinary meeting of council scheduled for the 28th of August will be proceeding. That's one that's to deal with representation review submissions. There will be a couple of other items to that agenda as well. The Great South Joint Shareholders Committee meeting on the 30th of August at 9 o'clock to be attended by Chairman Horrell, the Chief Executive. Security briefing with the Deputy Director of Intelligence on the 30th of August at 10:30. To be attended by the Chairman. Confirmation that the extraordinary meeting of council scheduled for the 4th of September will proceed, because that will be the deliberation side of the representation review. Southland Mayoral Forum is meeting with the Otago Mayoral Forum online on the 6th of September. And that involves Chairman Horrell and Councillor McPhail. Meeting with Penny Simmons, Minister for the Environment, Rewildings, has moved to the Friday the 13th of September at 1 o'clock. Regional Climate Change Working Group meeting has moved to the 19th of September, but I'm not conscious it's going to stay there because there's been lots of, but at the moment it has moved there. 2024 Export Gala Awards event at Invercargill on the 20th of September for the Chairman. And a Reimagining Matara Hui has a save the date set for the 24th of September at 9:30. In addition, councillor Morrison is seeking leave of absence from the 29th of August to the 11th of September.
Can't hear that.
That's that, yeah, now the Acefield Day, John also attended that.
Yeah, I just need to
Further
remove,
additions or?
remove me from the list for conference.
Also, we should try to get that Monday, the 26th changed to.
Well, I think there's only potentially one catch-up one, so it should be okay. Just might need to work the timing out.
Deliberations.
Yep.
Peter,
Yeah, I'll just ask a couple of questions. The regional services meeting with catchment liaison committees, what format is that? And it's always been a wee bit of confusion. Am I, as the chair of the regional service, to chair that meeting, or yourself, or what is, do we know the format that will take? Because in the past, it's been a mixed model and never really been quite too sure. And so if that can be cleared up, that would be good. Don't need an answer now. And also, there was talk around the office, and I think it might have been said that we're going to have a debriefing session around our long-term plan that we've just done. So is that in the cards somewhere for September? Thank you. No, it's not there.
So I'm on leave from 26th till about the 8th, so we'll certainly get it done and we need staff back in the building, and we need to have that meeting at the end of the month first, I think, so yeah. But I've got, Rachel.
Through you, Chair, there was a survey that's been sent out that hopefully everyone's picked up on. It was in What's On. So if we need to, we can send it out separately so it's more easily identifiable, because that was the first step, was to get your feedback individually so that we can compile that into something.
Rachel,
So that's, you can say it's confirmed now that we will have a session.
well, I think there's always going to be a session, just about when. So I think that's just a matter of timing.
And actually that separately would be great, because sometimes the What's On stuff gets lost in my universe. I'm not sure about anybody else.
Rachel, I'll put the link into the update today.
That's Rachel.
Okay, if there's no further changes, so we would.
Subject to those alterations, which would be forward.
Moved by Neville, seconded by Lyndall, all in favour say aye. Aye. We move to item 10.8, the common seal, which is reasonably straightforward.
I'll move that, Chairman.
Moved by Lyndall, seconded by Phil. All in favour say aye. Aye. And that, I believe, will finish the no extraordinary business for public. We need to move that at the end of the open part of the meeting. Jen will give the reasons why we are public excluded.
The reasons are all set out. The full resolution now sits on page 177 and 178 of your agendas. As confirmation of public excluded minutes, adoption of public excluded committee resolutions, and that's all there are no separate.
I move to Chairman on the basis of the reasons that are set out on page 177.
Moved by Neville, seconded, moved by public excluded. Phil, all in favour say aye. Aye. Right, so that's one separate. First up is the confirmation of which is